Hey guys, Carl here from GameReviewsHU.net. Today we're going to review Devilian Online, which was developed by Bluehole Geno Games and published by Trion Worlds on December 2015. However, Devilian had already been released in Korea for quite some time now, and even other regions like Thailand and China, and there had been problems with the Korean version, especially as they lost their original publisher and looking for a new one. But the game had still been released in the West for a fresh MMO to play. Just a quick tip before we start: if you are living in the West, then you can get this on Steam. Moreover, since I live in Southeast Asia, I will be using Trion's World client, Glyph, which is not really shabby to be honest. So wait, if you think that why Trion World sounds so familiar, it is because they are the one who developed Trove, an MMORPG sandbox which we reviewed a few months back, and now we are dealing with another game they published. If you already know Trion, they are the one that released Arcade and Reef, though most of its fan base is rather frustrated right now due to the way Trion Worlds handle paywall in their games, so just a heads up for those who want to try this game. There will be a lot of pay to win here. So let us start about what exactly is Devilian. It is a dark fantasy themed action MMORPG, so assuming it will be a fast pace in terms of its combat, and I will expound it much later. Anyway, Alcania is the home of the players in Devilian, and the word Devilian is not only the title of the game, but also the title of the players, because it basically means half devil. So if you have played Diablo or Torchlight, then you will definitely get the same vibe with Devilian, but with much more MMO in it, like its quest system and its open world. So let us start off with the character creation. It is pretty basic and quite limited as what I like, as you have 5 gender-locked classes, though more classes will be added in the future, hopefully. This is really not a bad thing, but I never liked that part of any MMO, gender locking. Developers should cease gender locking entirely, in my honest opinion. I said that on my other videos with gender locking. It sucks to have those. Anyway, let us do an introduction for the 5 classes. First, the Berserker, which I would choose in this game since I would like to be a tank. But at any rate, Berserker has 3 specializations: Speed Blade, wherein it focuses on multiple attacks that can stun enemies. The other is Marauder, which emphasizes on damaging multiple enemies at once with a powerful debuffs. Lastly, the Spell Sword, which involves creating support for the Berserker as they attack the surrounding enemies. You can mix these skills for variety or be much powerful depending on your preference. Its Devilian form wields two-handed greatsword, and he can easily knock out enemies with its skill and can drain enemies' health, which is a very great choice if you want to be in front line in a PvP match. So next class is Evoker. It is a range class which also has 3 specialties like any other classes, which are Control, where an Evoker can push enemies into a certain location and wreak havoc at the same time on that certain location, giving the maximum damage to the enemies. Another specialization is the Assault. It is basically your typical damage per second time of skills, and it uses a lot of mana in return. Lastly, it's Burst. It is basically like Marauder of Berserker, which focuses on damaging multiple nearby enemies, and it also has Recovery Field, which is very helpful in dungeon crawling and PvPs. The Devilian form of Evoker is a crazier version of this seemingly overpowered range character, as its ranged attacks are more deadly and she can teleport while cancelling all the debuffs she has. That is freaking awesome, to be honest. Next class is the Cannoneer, and this class is probably the hardest to manage due to the fact that if you want to unleash this class' full potential, you have to move around and be accurate on your skills and attacks. Since this game doesn't have an auto-locking system, then you'll probably have that. So its 3 specializations are Gunslinger, which uses the skills that slow and traps enemies in a certain area, which you can take advantage of. Another one is Demolisher. It basically gives the enemies debuffs and very effective supporting skills. Finally, the Opportunist. Its skills is putting traps and stuns the enemies, so yeah, that's very helpful for PvP and dungeon crawling. For its Devilian form, Cannoneer is a very powerful Devilian and can destroy, stun, and slow down enemies while giving ample of time to move. If you can handle quick movements on an ARPG, then this is the class you have to get. So the 4th class is the Shadow Hunter. He can attack both in melee and range, which is very versatile. And if you like that type of class, then play as Shadow Hunter. The 3 specializations are Shuriken, which utilizes a run and gun playstyles, as it attacks with range while having a higher chance to avoid retaliation from the enemies. The other one is Assassination style, which focuses on damaging single target while evading the counterattack of the enemies. Its last specialization is Shadow, which focuses on area of effect attacks, which is the perfect style for those who focus on less aiming and movement. Its Devilian form is as versatile as him. He can go invisible and destroy enemies, or even at PvP if the enemy doesn't pay too much attention. It really is up to you how you would set up Shadow Hunter. So yeah, and actually there's a new class here, and sadly it is behind the paywall. It is the Tempest. It's cost $14.99 or $9.99 depending on where you live. It's dumb. I find it dumb, to be honest. Hopefully it will be free as the months go by, since it would be awesome for other players to try it. Its specialties are Slaughter. It is mostly for area of effect buffs and enemy debuffs. It is a support skill tree. The other is Lancer. It is also area of effect base skills but mostly on offensive. And lastly, Interceptor. It is for rapid attacks on few enemies you can hit short bursts. It's Devilian form, and to be honest felt like a fan service for some, but she's extremely agile and powerful when she's in that form. I haven't checked what she can do, but she's like Shadow Hunter but slightly better maybe. So yeah, those are the 5 classes available in Devilian. Sorry if I'm talking so very quick because of the introduction. I just want to introduce all the characters because they are pretty interesting and pretty unique from each other, but sadly it's gender locked. Moving on with the customization itself. As I said, it is very basic to the point that all of them are just presets, but you can define the colors of their skin tone, eyes, and hair. It is your typical MMORPG, if not worse than some modern MMORPG. Sadly, you can even customize your Devilian form. It is supposed to be a good opportunity to create something unique, but sadly all the players will have to deal with the same freaking character model in their Devilian form. Though it depends on the class of their choice, so yeah. Character creation is dull and I was expecting more. When I was creating my character, the first thing that popped up in my mind was Terra. But Terra has extensive customization than Devilian. I mean, it is several miles away better than Devilian in terms of customization, and I was somewhat disappointed, especially since the developer of Terra bought the company who created this game. It is just that the character models look quite the same, but not really if you get my drift. Moving on with the visuals, well, the graphics of Devilian is a mixed opinion. For me, it quite looks dated in some parts, but sometimes they look great. But since this game has been around like 2 to 3 years from today when they released it first time, I'm not really surprised. Environments in the game, like I said earlier, are quite mixed. The maps are huge enough to explore when you have quests, very similar to any action RPG filled with slight MMO in making it open world. There is no loading screen, thankfully, except if you are going to a dungeon or another location through a portal, and that is a great thing. The design on some parts are quite dull, but each map has a different sections and different feel for each of them, and that's awesome. One part you are in a graveyard, and the other you are going to be a boss battle or some sort. Enemy models are unique enough, and there are unique monsters in each section of the map, though when you do quests, you will get tired seeing the same enemies over and over again. NPCs, well, do not bother with them. They are there because they need to be there. Player models. Since we tackled player creation, I must say don't expect to stand out among the others because of the limited customization of your character, and most armors and weapons look the same here. It is not even funny, seriously. The animation in this game is okay, not really great per se, but once you get your combo going, it is so much satisfying to see, particularly when hordes of enemies go right at you. So now we are into the gameplay of Devilian. For the most part, I love it. It is based from your typical action RPG like Diablo and Torchlight, so if you are familiar with that, then the combat system is easy to understand. Also, it is fun grinding the enemies for XP. The combat system is great, in my opinion, but there is no challenge in any way, unless you go to places with 2 or more levels above you, or unless you got caught off in a terrible timing with a random event, like a popping enemy with the same model as others but higher stat and buffed. That's crazy, man. I just died several times with that because of that. But even that, it is still quite easy to defeat them, to be honest, if you are ready and not got caught off guard. Since this game's combat system is of action RPG, it makes the game a lot more easier, smoother, and all that. I guess my only problem is the dodge animation. It is quite useless on normal enemies, but quite useful for boss fights who can use certain skill that can easily be avoidable. One new gimmick of Devilian is transforming into a devil. It sounds so fun in paper, but in reality, Devilian form is just like a huge buff, which is not really that much interesting once you realize it is almost useless and broad, and not fleshed out. That sucks because this is the only one unique thing here. Probably there are two other unique things, but this is one of the core points of the game, but it's kind of meh and sucks. Quests are, sad to say, repetitive since it is mostly do 5 times of this and kill 10 times of these enemies, then go back and claim your reward and get another quest with the same premise. That is basically the quest system of the game. I guess props for them for letting some quests to be completed remotely, and thanks for Autorun for making life easier when traveling from one place to another. Without Autorun, I would be very angry with the quest system. It's bland, it's repetitive, but since the combat is fun and grinding is satisfying enough, then it is somewhat forgivable in a short time. Because after level 20 or so, it's just a chore now. Good thing leveling up is easy. One downside of Autorun though is I never actually care on the world. I let my character autorun and do some stuff on my phone until he reaches the next location. But I guess that is okay since you are probably going back and forth in a place anyway. There are also instance dungeon. You can play solo or group. Sometimes it is so easy to join as a group, but most of the time you are going to play solo. It is easy and not really grinding in my opinion. It actually takes 8 minutes to 15 minutes to complete it and defeat the boss. Very linear. So you can easily retry it whenever you like. Dungeons are so few at first 20 levels, like there are 3 to 4 that you will encounter in the way, but once you reach level 25 or more, most quests would direct you to a dungeon anyway. Boss battles are so fun and quite challenging, and sometimes there are sub-bosses which I thought was already the boss and used Devilian form. I just wasted my souls there. It is fun, level design is decent, and the path you take differ from each dungeons, which I found nice since they never look identical to me, level design wise, since aesthetics feel all the same most of the time. So how about the PvP? Well, it feels like a MOBA game to be honest, probably because of its camera view. It feels like that, though it is still your generic PvP wherein you capture points while killing the other team until one of you get the desired points, which is fun to do so actually, only if not all your teammates and enemies are all at its end game already, which from the recent update the level cap was increased to level 54. You're going to get wrecked so bad in PvP due to the fact that they have better skills and armors than you are, even if you are heavily buffed. Another problem regarding PvP is if you use melee classes like Shadow Hunter and the Berserker, then you're going to get destroyed big time against range classes like Evoker and Cannoneer. They have these utterly frustrating skills that stun you and they can wreak havoc from afar. And you can even move an inch. Poor melee classes. Though I think they already nerfed some of those from the previous patches, but still the damage is too much for the melee classes. It is totally out of balance even now. Anyway, you can also create talisman. It's like a card base to make your character stronger. You have to craft those and open it, so it's quite random what you get, but it is quite good to expect something from that, since they are really helpful in making you stronger to say the least. Loot drops are fine when you're doing quests, though sometimes it is harder to get rare items on several tries in the game, though what you see before getting into dungeon is most likely what you will get in your run. There is also a marketplace where you can buy items and such. You can also buy packs like the Tempest pack so you can play the latest class in Devilian, though not necessary to buy things here. The pay to win is kinda there, just looming to tempt you, but it's not really mandatory. So that is basically the gameplay for Devilian. It is decent for short bursts of time, but it is getting quite repetitive if you play long enough, especially the quest system. Sounds and overall atmosphere like background music, depending on the theme of the area, are good enough. It is polished and sounds nice for the most part of my journey in Devilian. I do not really have anything to say about it. It fits rightly for Devilian and each area of the game. Nothing really annoyed me. So moving on with the replay value, currently the NA version is the most late for the content, since some region already has 60 level cap content and other stuff for the villains. So I guess that is one thing to look forward to into the future if you are looking to play the game again. Unless you have not reached the end game yet and you are not bored with the quest system, then you may be able to play until the end game, since the gameplay is fun enough and tolerable enough to reach the cap level if you have a lot of time. So that is basically my review for Devilian. Introduction for characters took a little bit more of time. But anyway, let us recap the pros and cons of Devilian. So pros. First is its combat system. It is good, it is fun grinding enemies and very likable. Second is its leveling up pacing. The game is easy, you can easily reach endgame within a week by playing 6 hours a day, especially if you are too keen on doing all the quests and doing dungeons. Third is the autorun, and thank for that developers. The autorun is very welcome for Devilian because considering its quest system. So the fourth is the loot drop. There are usually many loots to get, especially in the dungeon, and it is almost a sure deal you'd get a good loot you can trade or sell for in-game currency. And fifth is the dungeons. They are pretty great and unique from each other, so repeating it for quite some times do not get tedious at all. Next is the bosses for quests and dungeons. They are pretty challenging. to say the least. Lastly is its talisman system. Never did I play a game where I long for crafting talisman to make my character stronger. I guess this is one of the most unique system for Devilian. I actually like it, and I actually like collecting, combining them to make my talisman stronger. So those are the pros of Devilian. Moving on to the cons of the game. First is its try-and worlds. Though I like Trove when I reviewed it, but I checked their other games, and in this game, they are weak of pay-to-win marketplace. Though in Devilian, you are not necessarily have to buy them, but damn, locking a class from a paywall, that is greedy, man. Second is its gender lock classes. I hate it in any MMO. It sucks, especially since most of the classes are interesting enough. Third, in relation with the second con, is its player creation. Do not bother with being able to stand out among other players. All customization are preset, not even a slider. That is shameful, man. Same with armors and other cosmetic looks, they look pretty generic. Fourth is its quest system. Devilian is a hybrid of ARPG and MMO, but oh god, the quest system here may be fun for a while, especially at the start, until you realize you'll be doing the same thing until you reach level 54. Wow, that is not so cool. Fifth is its PvP. If this is so balanced and already fixed, this would be a pro since it's one of the strong suits of Devilian, but it sucks to be a melee class in PvP, hence it is a con. Devilian may be a nice touch, but it felt so underutilized, like it's there because of the title. So those are the pros and cons of Devilian. It is a pretty decent game at first, and if you like grinding, action MMORPG, and also tolerate gender lacking with almost no customization in player creation, then suffice to say, you will like this game, even for its shortcomings. Though I would recommend that you play this in short bursts, they are fun like that, but not in a long session of time because the quest system can easily get boring after a while. If they fix the PvP balancing, then PvP is so much fun to play, plus the dungeons, they are fun to do, especially with friends. So yeah, that is my review for Devilian. I hope you guys like it, try it out if you want. See you guys next time. Bye!